With the warm weather, skinheads are probably the way to go. So well done to Charlie, massive well done. Hi all to the newcomers who have just tuned in. For new people who are tuning in for the first time, I'm R.A. Powell. I'm a children's author. These are my two books, Odd Socks and CEO, Child Executive Officer. And this is the 5th workshop of the creative writing course for children. So to quickly summarise, this is a 6-week course designed to help children to improve their creative writing. In week 1, we talked about characterisation, the process of creating characters. In week 2, we talked about settings, so how we can create an environment in which our stories are told. In week 3, we talked about plot, so how we can structure our stories so they can flow at the right pace, they can keep the reader engaged and then tie everything nicely together at the end. And then last week we talked about dialogue, so how we can develop unique and authentic voices for our characters. If you've missed any of these workshops, please feel free to check out the videos on my Facebook page and also my YouTube channel. So we're going to have a slightly shorter session today. So I'm going to leave some time at the end for you to ask questions that you may have about the Rainbow Writing Competition, and also any questions that you may have about any of the content that we have covered so far. So it could be anything that we covered in the first workshop, the second, anything that we've covered in the course so far. The reason I'm doing that is because there are lots of questions about the writing competition that I'm seeing, and it's very difficult to reply to them all. So I'll save 5 or so minutes at the end to answer any questions. So if you do have any questions, save them up for the end, type them in the comments when I say so towards the end, and I will answer them. But first, we're going to talk about themes. So themes are essentially kind of the messages and meanings that we have in our stories. So kind of what does the reader, the people who read our stories, what do they feel? What do they take away from our stories? Every single book that you have read has a theme or has multiple themes, and most books do have more than one theme in them. So some common themes in books that you have probably read are kind of good versus evil, friendship, love, coming of age. Coming of age is kind of like the underdog theme, where kind of the smallest boy in class who always gets picked on turns out to be the hero and grows throughout the story. So there are lots of different themes that we can have in our stories. So for example, Odd Socks and CEO, I guess the themes in those stories are kind of about good versus evil, about teamwork, friendship, doing the right thing, never giving up. Even though both books are very different, you know, the plot is different, and the characters are different, they're different settings, but actually the themes are quite similar. Many people confuse the plot with the theme. Although they are similar in some respects, they are different. Without a theme, without a meaning to our stories, then the plot is kind of just like a number of events that take place one after the other. So think of the theme as kind of a thread. It's a golden thread which links and weaves and incorporates all aspects of our stories together. It weaves the plot together, it brings the characters in, so it's kind of like this magic material which kind of sits underneath our stories, and we don't see it really, we just feel it. And so today we're just going to explore how we can think about themes in our stories and understand, you know, the themes that we have. Because, for example, when I wrote both of my books, I didn't set out deliberately to write stories about good versus evil. That just happened. That happened through creating characters and a plot, and we'll come on to that in a second. So let me give you a simple example just about what a theme of a story is. This is just a very basic example. So let's say we have two characters. Let's call them Tony and Jenny. Welcome back, Tony and Jenny, back for a 5th week running. So Tony doesn't know, but Jenny is secretly stealing Tony's toys from his back garden at night. So the plot is about Tony's toys disappearing and gone missing, and then him turning detective to find them. But the theme could be about jealousy. So maybe Jenny is jealous of Tony. Or it could be about loneliness or poverty. So, you know, Jenny's parents might not have much money and they can't afford to buy Jenny any toys. So kind of the plot is what happens in the story, and the theme is the meaning underneath. So let's talk about some of the different themes we can have in our stories and how we can apply different themes to the same plot. That might sound confusing for now, but we will soon see. So let's have an activity just to warm you up. I would like you in the comments section to write the name of your favourite book ever, and then I would like you to write what are the themes in that story. So not what happens in the story, but what is the story about? What does it mean to you? So let's, fantastic. So I think some of those comments are coming through now. And so the purpose of this is just to help you to understand what themes are and kind of what they represent in a story. So it's different from the plot. It's kind of how we make the readers feel, or what we can messages. Fantastic. So some books coming through there now. Harry Potter, Hunger Games, excellent. So as you can see, that's brilliant. And so if you can continue to write what the themes are, excellent. So it's brilliant, fantastic. So Matilda is a classic one. Thank you, Gail. And good versus evil, absolutely. And so we'll have a few more activities around this, just so you can just have a clearer picture of what books really mean, what stories mean. And these are some of the things we can think about as authors when we're writing our stories. So some excellent choices of books there. Fantastic. So keep them coming through. So what we want to achieve as authors is we want our themes in our stories, the messages, we want them to shine through. So we don't necessarily say and write in our stories that this story is about good versus evil or friendship. The themes shine through, and the readers of our stories, they take away these themes and messages and meanings. They take them away through the characters we create, through the plot, the dialogue, and also even the setting of a story can play a part. So we'll cover some elements of that. You know, we've talked about characterization, we've talked about settings and dialogue and plot, and so we'll cover and bring some of those elements together through the lens of themes. So I say every week that creative writing is all about expressing yourself. It's about freedom. It's about letting the words flow out onto the page. And, you know, we've covered various different workshops so far where we can apply some structure to our writing, and we can do that through the plot or through character when we're creating characters. But when we talk about themes, and this is just my own personal opinion, but for me, the theme in the stories that we write are kind of a little bit of what's in here. It's kind of what we believe. You know, what are some of our beliefs, our values, our principles? How do we feel about certain topics around the world? I'm sure there are some authors out there who, might sit down and say, right, I want to write a story with a good versus evil theme, with a love story in it. For me, I would find that too difficult. I would find that a bit forced and not real. Themes for me are something which come from creating characters, creating a plot, and the theme kind of almost happens organically. It kind of happens naturally through who we are, and as long as we can express ourselves when we write, we're not afraid when we're writing. We can let our themes shine through. I'm not criticizing any authors who sit down and purposely decide to write a story with a particular theme, and that may work for you. We will all develop our own ways of writing and creating. But for me, the theme of a story is something which can happen more naturally. So, for example, in CEO, Child Executive Officer, this is Ben Hamley. He's the main character, and later on in the story, he discovers that there's a lot of people who are homeless, who are sleeping just right pretty much outside the gigantic toy shop that he owns, and Ben decides to do something about it. So I didn't deliberately decide at the beginning of writing the book that I would have something about homelessness in there, but that came first from me creating Ben as a character, really understanding Ben, who he is as a character, his principles, his values, his beliefs, and through creating Ben as a young boy who always wants to do the right thing, who is kind, who is caring, then the homeless part of the story came from that. But also, it's something that I feel really strong about, really passionate about, is that there are people who are homeless in our society, and I think that's wrong. And so that part of that CEO of that book is a little bit of my kind of emotions there, my feelings and my thought processes around that particular topic. So what I did do, and like I said, I didn't kind of deliberately set out to write a book that would have homelessness in it, but as I got later in the process of writing both of my books, I kind of sat back and kind of read the stories so far, and I tried to pick out the themes that I was taking away from the story, and then I could then go back into the story and make some little changes to the characters, some little changes to the plot, which would kind of emphasize and amplify those themes. So it's very helpful if we can understand the themes that we have in our stories. So a good exercise for you at home that you could do this week. So for those of you who are writing your 1,000 word stories, have a think about what are the themes in your stories that you write. You may already know, and you may have already decided when you started writing those stories that you're going to write a story about, whatever kind of theme it was. But you might not know. It might have just happened naturally, but it's a good thing. It's a good exercise to do, is to try and sit down and read your story in a different way. Don't kind of analyze it. Just read it as someone would read it who has never read it before, and see how it makes you feel. Obviously, with your 1,000 word stories for the Rainbow Writing Competition, I have asked for a rainbow to be in the story, or it could even be a rainbow themed story. But a rainbow can mean something different to so many different people. It could be symbolic of something else. It could represent a part of your life, or it could represent anything. So the point being is that we're all individuals, we're all different, we're all unique, and therefore the themes that we can place in our stories will represent some of who we are. And these are the things that our readers kind of take away from our story. And so so a good thing to do that as an exercise at home, and think about, you know, the themes that are in your stories, but also think about, what is it in your stories? Is there a particular character that you have that really kind of emphasizes those themes? Is it the plot? Is it how the characters interact with each other, the dialogue? So it could be all of those things. You could also ask someone else to read it. So maybe not your parents or a close family member. Maybe ask someone who you know, but who would maybe give you some honest feedback, and see what they take away from the story. Not necessarily on whether the grammar or, you know, the structure, the plot, but how does it make them feel? What messages do they take away from the story? So, you know, when we think about characters, and we've talked a lot about characters, obviously in the characterization workshop, we focused purely on how we create characters. But also last week in dialogue, we were talking about how we can really create an authentic and unique voice for our characters. And as authors, it's kind of our responsibility to create characters with this voice and personality. And so the characters that we create are kind of central to the themes that we have in our stories. So if you have a good versus evil theme in your story, then obviously you may have characters who represent good and evil. You may have a theme about love in your story, so you may have one or two or three characters in your story that may fall in love with each other. The underdog theme, which I mentioned earlier, is a classic theme. So a great example is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, one of my favourite children's books ever. If I said to you, what is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory about, then, or if you asked kind of pretty much anyone just in passing, they would probably explain to you a little bit about the plot. And that is right. But actually, in terms of the theme, what are the themes from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? You know, it's this young boy who's from a very poor family. And when he enters the factory, you know, he's surrounded by all of these kind of loud and arrogant and spoilt children who are from a very different background to what he's from. But yet Charlie makes all of the right decisions. He's very polite. He's very kind. And through doing the right thing, Charlie wins the factory. So, you know, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is a great example of kind of that underdog theme about doing the right thing. So for me, that is what Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is about. I hope this is making sense. If it isn't, again, we're going to have some time for questions at the end. But let's try an activity. I'm going to give you two characters. Guess what their names are. There's no prizes for guessing correctly, but I'm sure some of you who tune in every week will be able to guess. But I'm going to give you two characters, and I would like you to write in the comment section what you think the potential themes to this story could be. So the first character is Tony. Tony is a young 8-year-old boy who doesn't have any friends. And the second character is an old lady called Jenny who lives all alone. So what themes do you think that you could create from starting with these two characters? If I said to you, I would like you to write a story featuring these two characters, Tony, a young 8-year-old boy, and Jenny, an older lady who lives all alone. You know, what are the themes that could arise from that story? Not the plot, not kind of what happens, but what themes could you... There we go. Friendship would be a great example. But the point of this exercise is just to see, and loneliness, fantastic. So we can see all different perspectives that you are bringing to this, because again, like I said earlier, we are all different. We are all unique in our own special way. And what we bring when we write, when we create, these are kind of the themes that shine through. We bring our own personal perspective and thoughts and feelings to the stories that we write. And these shine through. So you can see the range of different themes that you have all come up with, which is fantastic. There's some common ones there. There's a lot of friendship, some loneliness, isolation, kindness. So you can see some depression. There's a whole range of different themes, and you all will bring your own perspective to that. So let's stay with this activity. So we've got these two characters, Tony, a young 8-year-old boy who lives, who doesn't have any friends. And then we've got Jenny, who's an older lady who lives all alone. You have already come up with some themes to this potential story. Now, I would like you to write in the comment section what the plot could be. So it doesn't have to be, lots of information. What could one line, what could happen in the story based on the themes that you've come up with? So lots of themes still coming through there. Fantastic. If you're watching this after the live stream, or you're watching this on YouTube, you can simply take part in these activities with a pen and some paper. And so feel free to do that. So fantastic. So they're coming through now. So this, again, all of the activities that we've run in this course, through all of the 5 workshops that we've hosted so far, they're all about instinct. They're all about, coming up with an idea, then building on that quickly. And that's what you have. You've been given 2 characters, and then you've come up with some potential themes. And now you're coming up with a plot. So you see, creative writing isn't rocket science. You get all of these people out there who want you to think it's something which is beyond most people, but it isn't. We can all create. We all have thoughts and feelings and ideas. It's really just a case of writing things down. Write things down. If you get an idea, write it down, and then you can always come back to that idea a bit later on. And because, like I say every week again, sorry if I repeat myself every week, but our brains are these things which, they're always moving, they're always kind of whirring, and an idea will come into our minds, and then 2 seconds later it's gone. And so these activities that we do are all about instinct and writing things down. Fantastic. See how many ideas that you can come up with. It really is amazing. So this, again, as well, is about demonstrating that the plot and the themes are kind of entwined. There's a really kind of close relationship between the plot in our story, so what happens, but also the messages, the meaning, the themes that arise from our story. So they're really kind of connected. So we're going to come towards the end of themes for now, and I'm going to leave a few minutes for any questions that you may have about the Rainbow Writing Competition, or any questions you may have about any of the content that we've covered so far. But just to summarize what we've covered today. So we've talked about themes. And themes in a story are kind of the messages, the meanings that we can have in our stories, which we can create and shine through our characters and the plot and the dialogue and the settings. We can have more than one theme in our stories. And for me, this is just my own personal opinion, but themes are something which should come naturally as a result of creating fantastic characters and plot. It's not something that we should force. It's like writing songs or painting. We don't want to force creativity. This should come naturally. So by understanding the themes that we have in our stories, we can take our writing to a whole new level just by reading what we've... Hi, I'm back. I had a bit of a... I cut out then for a second. That's never happened in any of the workshops, but I'm back. Thank you for sticking around. So let's have a look at questions. Excellent. So how do you enter the story? If you go on the event page for the creative writing course, you will see a pinned post which will give you all of the information. It's called the Rainbow Writing Competition, and there are various different age categories for children, and there are prizes. The deadline to submit the stories is Wednesday the 6th of May. So if you check out the event page for this creative writing course on Facebook, you will see all of the information, or just follow me on Facebook and you will see an updated post from me later. Are we allowed to do 1,500 words? Unfortunately, Tanya, we are not. So the limit is 1,000 words, but you know, if you go 1,050 words, 1,100 words maximum, that is absolutely fine. But any more than that, the reason for that is there is a real skill to be given a word limit, a maximum number of words that you can get your story and get your message across in. So, you know, it's quite easy to waffle on when we write. And just to write lots and lots of things. So having the 1,000 word limit, you know, hopefully will help you to really focus your story. So it's focused on kind of relevant information in the plot and the characters. And so it's kind of condensed. And as well, from a selfish perspective, you know, if everyone wrote 10,000 word stories, it would take me forever to read them all. There was a question around, so when is the deadline? Wednesday the 6th of May is the deadline. What time do you announce the winners? The winners will be announced, this is off the top of my head, I'm sure it's Wednesday the 27th of May, live on Facebook, 3 p.m. I'm going to announce the winners. There are different age categories, which... so one for children under the age of 7, then there's 8 till 10, then 11 till 13, and then 14 and over. You can add illustrations to your stories if you want to. In fact, I've already received nearly, I think 10 stories I've already received now, and a couple of them have had illustrations, which is fantastic. There was a question about, can you do 800 words? Of course. And something I've always said for younger children who, you know, 1,000 words might be too much. So just write whatever you're comfortable with. But the maximum is about 1,000 words. You can do 1,100 as an absolute maximum. You can do 900, yes. Can you do 1,150? Sorry, Sadia. 1,100, but there is a real skill in kind of editing your work. So when you've finished your story, a good thing to do is to kind of step away from it, give it a break, don't read it for a few days, and then read it, come back to it with a fresh pair of eyes, and think about any unnecessary words that you've got in there. How can you condense your writing so it's more direct? And so you will find there are always little words that we have in our writing which are probably unnecessary. So if you are on 1,150, I'm pretty certain that you could take 50 words out of that and get down to the 1,100, which is the absolute max. What are the prizes? Yulia, thank you for the question. The prizes are not that exciting, I'm afraid, but personalised signed copies of Odd Socks, CEO Child Executive Officer, and my third book, which will be out hopefully in about a month or two's time. So you will get 3 books, all written by me, but they will be signed personally with a message of your choice. Also, if practical and possible, given the current situation, but when the schools reopen, I would be delighted to visit each of the winners' schools to do a talk in assembly, or you know, whatever the winners would prefer. So that is the prize. So it's not an incredible prize, but I hope it's kind of good enough. Good. The word limits for each age group. So there is no kind of word limit by age category. It's purely just write what you're comfortable with. So if you're 7 years old, you might only want to write 500 words or 400 or 200, whatever you're comfortable with. But the absolute maximum is 1,000 words. Brilliant. Can you write a longer story and send in a shorter version? You can do, yeah. I mean, I'm making this up as I'm going along. So absolutely. So from Charlie, you can absolutely do that. You can write a longer story and you can send in a shorter one. Brilliant. Can you type it from Lorraine? Yes, you can absolutely type the story. So it can be in a kind of Word document, or it can be handwritten. What is important actually is that you put your name, just your first name, not your surname, but just your first name and your age on the story, and it will be emailed to me, which is all of that information is on my Facebook page. Fantastic. Let me have a look if there's any more questions. Brilliant. So you don't have to type it. If you live in a different country, that is absolutely fine, because you can email the story to me, and or in terms of the school visit, the different country, yes, that might be difficult, but I could do a Zoom or video conference, dial in and speak to a class in a different country. That would be absolutely fine. But entrants are welcome from any part of the world. What is the new book called? My new book is actually a follow-up to my first book, Odd Socks. It's called Odd Socks Make Socks Feel Great Again. And I absolutely loved writing it. It's great. It was great fun, and I can't wait to get it out there. I've just today had the kind of first final draft of the illustrations, and they look amazing. I work with this fantastic illustrator called Erica Glass, who is a really talented person. So if you do win and you live in a different country, you'll get the book sent to you. The prizes will be sent to you, but the school visit will have to think about. I mean, if you're in Australia, then that's probably not going to happen, but we could do a video conference. Let's have a look. And there's some questions around what would happen if you were in year 7 after the coronavirus, but in year 6 now. I think, it's based on your age rather than what year you are at school. So, enter whatever age you are when you enter your story. That's what we'll go with. Yes. Will we send it to you? Yeah, you can send it to me by email. So rpowellauthor@outlook.com. But that is on, if you look on my Facebook page, you will see a post on there with all of this information. But tonight I will do an updated post which will have all of this information on. And when this strange period ends, Christina, can you visit our school, even if I lose? I would love to visit your school. I've visited lots of schools local to where I live, and I absolutely love it. It's such good fun. So I would be delighted to visit any schools. Absolutely. Absolutely. Brilliant. Don't worry about spelling too much in your stories. This is about creative writing. It's about expressing yourself. Don't worry about any spelling. Thank you, Lorraine, for that question. Good. I think I'm just scrolling down. If you're in Ireland, you're very welcome to join. You can help your younger siblings write their story. I can't show you my new book because I don't have a copy yet. Thank you, Nikki, for that question. But I will have it hopefully soon when it's printed and it kind of exists. So thank you. But I am going to have a virtual book launch for my next book in the coming months. So I will be inviting all of you to join that. Obviously, it won't be an in-person book launch, which sadly, because of the situation, but I will be doing a virtual one. And I will be announcing the winners end of May. Brilliant. I think I'm going to have to tune out now, but thank you. What if you live far away from the winner skills? Thank you, Tanya. We'll work it out. We'll find a way. I'm sure we can figure something out. I'm really sure about that. And so I really appreciate you all tuning in every week. It means an awful lot to me, especially on beautiful days like this. So look forward to you tuning in for the final workshop next week. I'll probably be a bit emotional for the final workshop. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Stay safe, stay well, and have a great week. I'm going to go now. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.